Welcome in, folks, for another episode of What's Bruin. I am your host, Chris Nozick, joined as always by the lovely Gayle Trioni and by a special guest, Kenny Kaminsky. Both of you, are you guys excited for a new season? Thanks for coming in basically it seems like a random day at this point because we're in the dog days of the summer. But Gayle, Kenny, how are you guys going? I'll direct it to you, Gayle, first. Ladies first.
First of all, sir, happy birthday.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. I would be remiss to not say happy birthday. If I could get but why can't I get the balloons to go up now?
I don't know.
I get the random balloons at times and I can't forget. I'm like doing thumbs up. I don't know. Anyways, congratulations. Happy birthday to my wonderful co-host, which I was thinking about today, how we started doing this together. And I'm like, so random.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't change it. And I'm excited to get Kenny's thoughts on some lineup stuff today, and looking forward to hearing more about your new pod that's launching.
Yes. So as you mentioned, part of the reason why I wanted to invite Kenny on is tomorrow will be our first episode of the Next Shift podcast. And Kenny and I have done a lot of communication, and we did some stuff towards the end of last year, mostly around the AHL. And I know that, Kenny, you've covered Providence now for a bit. And so we figured, since there's not a lot to talk about across hockey in general, not only would we dive into the Boston roster and lineup, but that's obviously going to have a direct effect on Providence. And so just getting those extra thoughts. I'm excited for tomorrow's show, though. We'll talk a lot about some of the stuff that we're looking forward to in the NCAA, the Canadian juniors, a couple other leagues out there. But Kenny, thanks for jumping on today. And how are you doing?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and happy birthday. I shot you a little message earlier. I'm not going to lie, it feels like my birthday because I have been bored to tears around my house. No school, no nothing. School actually just started today. But thank God for the Little League World Series, and thank you for having me on because I'm just I'm so ready for the hockey season. I'm so ready to talk about it. Providence Bruins and prospects, baby. Let's go.
Kenny, before we jump into it, for those of us that haven't officially met you, like I now, have met you, and I'm aware of things that you've done, but why don't you tell everyone a little bit about, I know you're going to go over that probably tomorrow too, but at least on ours, just like what you've done, where you go to school, like favorite players, favorite team, something, just throw us a little icebreaker here.
Yeah, all right. I'll throw you a little something. I live in Connecticut, so that's good. Little League World Series, American, game or whatever it's going on tomorrow. Little League World Series, they've been killing it. So proud Connecticutan. I don't know how else you'd say it. I go to a community college down here, so I have a lot of time to work on other stuff, and I enjoy hockey. Played for a while. Fortunately, you get washed at a certain point. And then, you decide to grab a microphone and try your hand there. Been covering the Providence Bruins for around a season and a half. It's been a while. I watched every game last season. I just had a great time, and I'm excited to be here, excited to talk about Providence. It was great last season because at the beginning of the year, nobody really cared about what was going on. Everybody still had hope. And then as the year progressed, now more people are caring about Providence. More people are asking questions. More people are tuning into live streams. And fortunately, at the end of the season, Chris and I started to do some live streams, and those were always a great time. So when we were talking about podcasts and stuff like that, I'm like, let's do it. We got to jump on it. We got to do something. And we're going to be covering all NHL prospects, which is great. Makes it a lot more fun talking about, everything opposed to just one team.
Yeah.
But so this season I'm still going to be covering Providence, and I'm going to be covering Bridgeport as well. Obviously, I live in Connecticut, a much easier commute, 20 minutes to Bridgeport opposed to 2 hours to Providence. So,
yeah.
That's going to be fun. And I'm just excited for stuff to get going. Like I said, I've been laying in bed, work ends up finishing, then you got a month, and then it's just boredom. I've been hitting the gym like twice a day just out of boredom. I'm like, oh my God.
Just got to get it. Trust me, as someone who's been cooped up in my house for far too long, just because of some health stuff going on for months, the stir craziness, if I could get to the gym twice a day, I'd be doing that just because it is so real. But yeah, as you mentioned, the interest in prospects, Gayle, as you know, it always peaks for like a month and then nothing it's like everyone becomes an expert on them for 1 month because they hear all these things within that month, and then who cares?
Right. I think people that want to pay attention to development camp and then want to pay attention to training camp, that's where the focus on the prospects is so big. And then once the roster's set, your typical hockey fan, not just Bruins fans, but your typical hockey fan is just going to focus on the NHL and what the standings are and who's scoring and, stuff like that. And they're not really focusing on the prospects. Although with the Bruins being as bad as they were last year, I think there was a little bit more focus on the prospects because everyone was like, why is Lysell not getting a shot? Why is Merck not getting a shot? Why is Patras still down in Providence? So I think that became the focal point. It wasn't so much that they knew anything about the prospects. I mean, some people do. Some people are very passionate and they really do know the prospects. We have this conversation all the time. But other people are just like, why is this, bottom six forward on a Bruins roster when you could be playing whoever?
And Dom, everyone knows Dom and his prospect knowledge, of course, already given me crap in the comments because we started maybe 2 minutes late.
Yeah, that was my fault too, Dom, by the way.
That's okay. I'm not that worried about 120 seconds of time. And appreciate the happy birthday wishes from Matt as well out there. But yeah, so coming into this episode, I've been, we've all heard some of the podcasts that are out there. There's very few right now in general, but we've all heard the various lineups and stuff like that people are trying to come up with on their own. And, I think we're all kind of, how's this going to look? How's that going to look? And, who are they going to waive? And obviously everybody kind of has this person has no shot in hell in making the roster opinions, but I wanted us to kind of really put our heads together and think about a roster that might actually make sense, a lineup that might make sense, and is reasonable. As you pointed out, Gayle, not everyone always has that the care, but also, I was putting my own thought to it, and I'm like, obviously they're not looking to waive anybody. They don't want to just risk a Sean Corrali to get claimed on waivers. They're not looking, I know a lot of people are focusing on goaltending. Oh, they're, waive Korpisalo, let them go for this. They're not looking to do that. If it happens, they're prepared for it, but they're not looking to lose either Korpisalo or DiPietro. And that's why contracts are structured the way they are, so that they can try to get someone through.
No, but if anyone thinks that DiPietro is going to be on the roster before Korpisalo, then they're not paying attention.
The only reason, and I want to, at least in my opinion, the only reason why they would keep DiPietro and waive Korpisalo is because of money. That's the only reason why they would do it. And it's not going to save them enough to warrant them considering.
They don't need money now.
That's my point. It's not going to save them enough to warrant it. And Kenny, I know you and I talked a lot last year about DiPietro, Brandon Bussey in Providence. I mean, I know the big claim is if they waive DiPietro, he's going to get claimed, and everyone's looking at Edmonton. Do you care?
Well,
but it's not going to happen at training camp.
No, I'm just saying in general, if they waive him,
for him to go down to Providence, right?
Yeah,
he has to be put on waivers to be put on to be sent to Providence, correct?
He has to clear waivers, and it's not going to happen until at least the end of camp.
Right. It's going to happen at the end of preseason before opening night, because they're not going to carry 3 goaltenders on their roster, and it's going to happen. Edmonton is not going to, if Edmonton, like, they're not going to claim him this early in the season. Where he would get claimed is if he's doing what he was doing in Providence. They call him up because Swayman or Korpisalo is hurt, and then they have to put him back down. That's when he's going to get picked up by someone.
100%.
Not at the beginning of the season. Not at the beginning of the season.
My question,
and if
still, go ahead.
If he does get picked up at the beginning of the season, then I will eat the crow, but I don't believe that that's going to happen.
Kenny, my question still stands, though. Do you care if he gets claimed on waivers at any point, whether it happens as Gayle lined out, as we both know would happen, or at the beginning of the season? Because I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, as somebody who's been watching Providence, I mean, Mikey DiPietro is a guy that you root for, honestly. So I would probably be happy if he gets an opportunity somewhere else. Right. I won't be like, oh my gosh, we lost out on a goalie. And I know I've made this joke a few times, but people who want DiPietro in the NHL are hoping that he turns out to be just as good as Korpisalo. It's like, what's the point of getting rid of Korpisalo? You're just hoping that DiPietro is as good as Korpisalo. It makes zero sense.
Right, but Kenny, the people that want that to happen is strictly from a cap space, because they don't believe that Korpisalo is worth the contract that he already has. So that's it. That's the only reason. It's not because they think that DiPietro is going to be better than Korpisalo or DiPietro is going to be better than Swayman. It's because they don't like the fact that the Bruins have spent that much money on 2 goaltenders.
I mean, I've seen people who think that DiPietro is going to be a better goalie than Korpisalo, and those are the people that are stat watching and looking at, how he played last season. And listen, let me give it to him. He played very well last season. Like, he was the best goalie in the AHL. But
in the AHL.
Yeah, in the AHL, which is a little different. And also, it's hard because you watch the preseason games, and DiPietro and Bussy struggled in preseason games. They were not good. So, and again, that's early in the season, right? Like, you can, but it's just, it's hard. It's hard. You don't want to lose a guy. I mean, the goaltending in Providence right now is still a question mark in my eyes, right? You bring the goalie over from the Czech Republic. You have Luke Calvin, who's, I forgot what his name is, Calvin. But I know
who you're talking about.
I did watch him last season in whatever the Trois Rivières when he playing Maine. He's a good goalie, but I mean, again, is he AHL level? That's to be seen. So having Michael DiPietro in Providence is going to be huge for the team. But if you lose him, it's you're going to have to figure it out. And honestly, I think, like what you said, Gayle, the team's not just going to give him away. They're going to try to find a time that fits, that they're like, okay, I think this is going to work, because an NHL team is going to have to carry him on the NHL roster. So,
I think we're
analyzed. I think he can, and again, sending down Korpisalo doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
He gets claimed quicker than DiPietro does at the beginning of the season because he's an NHL proven goaltender.
Yeah, not only NHL.
Oh, Kenny keeps freezing.
Yeah, I think he might have to reset or refresh his connection there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's a huge difference between Mackenzie Entwistle and Jesse Puljujarvi shooting on DiPietro versus Alex Ovechkin, Sidney Crosby, Connor McDavid, like those guys shooting on him. So
even facing Florida, facing Toronto, facing even Ottawa, that you know what I mean? Like, you're looking at the teams that he would be facing in their own division, let alone across the NHL. It's just, and the other thing is too, is that when you have like if you look at last year, had they split it a little bit more, I know they were trying to get Swayman back into his rhythm, but had they split it a little bit more, Korpisalo would have been even more solid than what he was. You know what I mean?
And we got Kenny back.
There we go.
Welcome back, Kenny.
It's amazing what that refresh button can do.
I know, it's unbelievable. Thank God.
So, yeah, I think if they had used Korpisalo last year, I mean, there were a couple of skids that he helped stop as well. And that goes under noticed. And we, let's see, B. Murr Head 11 says, I was surprised the Bruins didn't draft a goalie considering how thin they are at the position. I go back and forth on this because, yeah, they're thin at the position, but you just signed Swayman for 8 years.
Yeah, but you still have to rebuild because like we talked about, Kenny brought it up. They lost Bussy. They could possibly lose DiPietro. And again, are you that upset if you lose them? No, but who do you have in the pipeline behind them? Like, well, you have to.
Right now you have Korpisalo for 2 more seasons. So your worst case scenario is you have Swayman, Korpisalo for 2 seasons, and you have to figure out your pipeline behind that. That is your worst case scenario. Now, you've just brought over that Zajac kid from Czech. And as you mentioned, Kenny, you have Calavin in Boston and Providence. You don't know what you're going to get from them, but you can bring in players like that. From what I've heard about, especially the Zajac, he has been a very solid goaltender over in the leagues over there. The question is whether or not he can carry his same reads over on the smaller ice. If he can do that, he will be the one that they're looking at to be Swayman's future number 2. That's how much they like what he can bring. So at 26 and 20 or 26, and I think Bussy was 26 as well. Neither one of them really fit the long-term plan anyway.
Right.
So at a certain point, you're going to move on from them. It's just a matter of, do you want to trade them? Are you okay with losing them for nothing? Neither one of them were ever going to surpass Swayman for the starting role. Well, to draft someone now, I think you're really looking at not maybe even this year's draft, maybe next year's draft, because you just need to get through those first 4 or 5 years of Swayman's. Now, if he gets hurt, then you have to address it sooner.
Will you stop with that?
Well,
it's almost like you're willing it into existence. You need to stop.
You just need to plan for everything.
No, you bring it up all the time. Stop. Drop it. We're not having this conversation again. Nope, not having it.
All right. Kenny, next time I'll just point at you and you can say it.
Anyone that watches the show knows we have this conversation all the time, and I'm zip it, done.
So, but goaltending conversation, on a little wrap, I think we're all in agreement that it'll be Swayman and Korpisalo to start the season, barring some catastrophic failure of Korpisalo in preseason or some complete ascension of DiPietro in preseason. DiPietro will be in Providence.
Yeah, I mean, but for that question, it's just like, why wouldn't you? I think this draft was pretty loaded with goalies. Like, you could get a really good goalie in the later rounds. I mean, like, I don't know why you wouldn't take a shot, especially with some of the goalies that were still here. And the goalies take longer to develop. You know, I mean, obviously that's not one size fits all, but a goalie could take 4 years, right? And then you're at that point, and then you have a goalie ready. Always having another goalie isn't the worst thing. And of course, we see Svedback in Providence, and we have no idea, or Providence College, I should say. It's 2 different Providences, but yeah, and we have no idea. Honestly, I watched them last year, and I wasn't too thrilled, honestly. So it's just I was a little shocked as well. I thought that they would have at least picked up somebody later, especially with how many good goalies. You could take a chance on somebody and try to build them up, 4 years.
I think this coming draft is the one you're more likely to see them take someone, because if you really also look back at their prospect pool overall, like, a goaltending prospect is easier to find just out of the NCAA who went undrafted. So if you needed someone, I mean, you and I last year saw for Providence when Bussy got hurt, and they're in the middle of North Carolina, they're able to just pull someone in and even just have him there. But Dom says they are counting on Boya when the NCAA season ends. That very well might be true as well. They obviously this year's development camp, they had Boya, they had Corpy, they had a couple other camp invites, but I think Boya is someone they're watching closely for sure.
Yeah, I'll take everything back if we can get Boya. All right, I'll clip this at the end of the season. I'll be like, I take it back. I take it back. You know what? We don't need a goalie. We don't need a draft. It's all good.
I didn't mean it.
Yeah. Sorry that I put that out there.
Kenny and I are both going to be eating crow at some point.
Aren't we all though? Like we do this and then we hope we're wrong sometimes. So
see, but I only hop on one episode. You guys are here all the time, and it's like I'm already struggling. I'm already gonna have to, take back some of my statements. I've only been here for 20 minutes. So
hey, just wait till we start our show tomorrow.
Yeah, that'll look
but
great.
when you think about some of the guys they got, Moore, Hagens, Yemulanov, even Chandler and Pedersen, like next year might make a little bit more sense to draft one if you're not able to sign a guy like Boya or someone else who maybe catches your eye in the NCAA this year. Because even Boya, he needs this year. He'll probably need a year or two in Providence before he's NHL ready to be a backup. So there, and what if you get a goaltender? We can use Boya as an example. What if he comes in and what if he does push Swayman in that starting position and he shows that he's better or just as good, and now you start getting flooded with offers for him, and you're not going to be able to keep him and Swayman. You're either looking at dealing one or the other. Like, not that that's a bad position to be in, but to start the season, though, fair enough to say DiPietro and Providence, Korpisalo backing up Swayman. Yes, no?
Yeah. I'll take that. And I'll also add that I'm not as upset as some others about the Bruins not drafting a goalie, because I actually do like the 6th round pick of getting Cole Chandler. He had a rough start to the season. He was battling back from medical issues. He dominated the back half of the season. So I'm completely fine with that pick. So I'm already kind of retracting what I said. So, but I'll put that out there.
So do you guys want to start with the forward group? Now the goaltenders are out of the way. Do you guys want to start with the forward?
Let's do the next easiest group.
The next easiest group, the defensemen.
Yeah. I mean, I already have my pairs in my mind. It's just a matter of.
Let's start with your pairs then, Gayle, if you already got them in your mind.
Yeah, so I've got Lohrei with McAvoy, Peak with Lindholm, and Zadorov and Jokiharju. That's mine in that order too, with McAvoy on the top, with Lindholm in the in the middle, and Zadorov, at the bottom. And then my thing though is having whether or not it ends up being Harris or Soderstrom as your 7th defenseman. I don't know which one of them is going to push for that spot, and can they push either Jokiharju or Peak out of the lineup? You know what I mean? Because those are the only two I see them pushing out of the lineup. But I think that having Lohrei with McAvoy is going to be more complementary than Lohrei with Lindholm. I think Lindholm, because he jumps up in the play and he's more of your offensive-minded defenseman over McAvoy, that you got to have him have that defensive-minded, which is Peak. You know what I mean? Because Lohrei is going to always jump up. So that's why I'm going with those pairs.
I think that's also what a lot of people are going with. Kenny, what are your thoughts on that pairing, that trio of pairs?
Yeah, I mean, I love the idea of Lohrei playing with McAvoy. I was very, very impressed with Charlie McAvoy even when I was younger, watching him at the World Juniors and watching him at BU. Just the way that he does everything, right? He's a good defender. He's able to score goals. I think that's a guy that Mason Lohrei could really benefit from sitting with all the time. We talked about it in Providence last season with Lysell being stapled to Patrick Brown. I think this could be a good situation. Not as bad as the Lysell Brown. I think Brown did a lot of off-ice stuff as well. But Lohrei playing slightly better defense, I mean, wouldn't we all love that? Just a little bit. Not being, Oh, well, maybe more than a little bit, but you get what I'm saying. Like
not being a minus 30 something.
Well, but I also,
Yeah.
again, we had this conversation a couple of weeks ago, Kenny, not to cut you off, but I think low-rise numbers were skewed a lot because of the fact that the Bruins were missing Lindholm, they were missing McAvoy, and then they were missing Brandon Carlo. So he had to step up, and that led to a lot of pressure. His minutes jumped up. He was playing in more situations, and the only one he had to rely on was Zadorov, who's new to the Bruins system. So I think we're going to see Lowry go back to the way he was the first season, where when he came back up after being sent down for a little bit.
I think we'll also see a little bit more confidence from him too, because
for sure.
the last year kind of in his mind probably solidified even if I screw up, I'm not the first one on the train to back to Providence.
Right.
Like I can screw up and it's okay. Also in my mind, the comments of Marco Sturm about that pairing, like it just tells me he's already thinking about those two together. And then we saw a lot of Zadorov's game improve when even in a higher elevated role, his game still got much better when he was with Yoki Haru. It's almost like Yoki Haru is somehow a Zadorov whisperer. And so I think those two are almost going to be together simply because of that. You're not going to put Yoki Haru with someone else, because now you're weakening two pairs. They played well enough together that as your third pair, that's almost your ideal situation. The one thing that I go back and forth between is whether or not Soderstrom can beat out Andrew Peeke for being paired with Lindholm, because he plays a significantly better two-way game. Significantly better. And it's the style of game that matches hand in hand with Hampus Lindholm. And it's almost like you have a right-handed Hampus Lindholm to go next to your left-handed actual Hampus Lindholm.
Right.
And so I wonder if that might be a pairing that just meshes so well because of an ability to read off of each other that he doesn't actually make that spot.
Well, I think that's where you're going to see if the chemistry clicks in camp and in the preseason, that I don't think that he ends up in Providence. I think he could maybe not start opening night. It could be Peeke in his place, depending on how quickly he acclimates to. But we have to remember too, there might be a new system. I mean, we don't know what Marco Sturm is going to implement. So it could be a learning curve for a lot of people. So it could level the playing field for a Soderstrom against a Peeke because of that together. But it could be that chemistry. You could be building that chemistry right from the get-go. And
I actually have to ask Dom, since he made this comment. He asked if I'm trying to pit the Swedes together or put them together.
Yeah.
I'm gonna, while you finish your thought, Gayle, I'm gonna look and see if these two have ever played together before.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have a problem with Soderberg, but we have to see how he fits in this lineup. Like, we haven't really seen him. He hasn't been able to crack the NHL. You know what I mean? So maybe this change of scenery, maybe playing with Lindholm and playing under Marco Sturm is what puts him into the NHL. And I wouldn't be upset if Peeke ends up being your seventh defenseman rotating in.
Yeah.
Because you rotate him in and you keep everyone fresh. Like, I don't care. I know that there are some players that have in their contract that, games played, they get bonuses, this, that, and the other thing. But if you're going to keep players fresh. All right, who's got the sirens?
That would be me. Sorry. Our windows here only open about 3 inches. All right. And through that 3 inches, I'm like, what the hell is going on out there? So I'm in freaking middle of nowhere, Mass. Nothing ever happens up here. So, but that's the one spot that I go back and forth on, where I'm like, I can very easily, especially, and as Dom puts, they're both Swedes. Like there's going to be some kind of connection there. I can very easily see Peak being the seventh defenseman, and as you said, get rotated in. It's just, does it happen for game 1 or does it happen game 31?
I think because he's been here, more people have him as opposed to Soderstrom because they know what they're going to get from Peak. You don't know what you're going to get from Soderstrom yet. You know what I mean? So I think that that's why me and a lot of other people are sticking him in the lineup versus Soderstrom, because he has not been able to crack the NHL.
Yeah.
Well, he chose to go back to Sweden last year. He'd be in the NHL if Utah didn't move from Arizona.
Okay.
I honestly, I think it was a good thing to go to the SHL. I mean, I'll be honest, like I was definitely not watching the SHL all season, but I did watch some of the playoff games, and he jumped off the screen. He was very, very good. So I'm just saying, maybe it would have worked out, maybe it wouldn't have, but I think that year in the SHL would have been, or was good and beneficial, and I was thrilled to be able to get him over for what we did. I mean, 7th round pick and Ryan Mast, so.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's really no losing. There's no losing it. Ryan Mast wasn't going to play in the NHL, so.
Did you look it up? Did he play with Lindholm?
I haven't been able to find anything definitive yet, but he has been on the international roster before. It's just a matter of whether or not it was an overlapping one. I'm just trying to see. I know Blumel and Pasternak have played together, so I'll keep looking though. But any other defenseman that you think will make the NHL roster or push this team to possibly carry 8 on the NHL roster?
Never.
Kenny, anything?
I like Bruin, but I don't think he's going to be. I don't think it would be beneficial, because the problem is like, you don't want Bruin coming up and playing the 7th defenseman. You don't want him sitting. You'd rather have him playing in Providence anyways. And I feel like that with a lot of defensemen. Same with Ty Gallagher, another one that's great, but you don't want him sitting in the 7th defenseman role, sitting most nights. I'd rather just have him in Providence. I mean, like I said, I think Providence's defensive depth is going to be fun to watch this year. I'm a huge fan of Jackson Edward. Loki Johansson also going to be in Providence this year. You got Ty Gallagher still. But like those guys are pushing for 7 spots as of right now, and you would probably keep them in Providence at that point. So,
well, you transitioned perfectly over to my next question. What do we think the defensive lineup in Providence would look like with, like you said, those guys, Brunet, Johansson, Callahan is signed, Gallagher. I mean, we got Jackson Edward, who everybody still wants to see more of. Gayle, I don't know how much thought you put into the Providence pairings, but are there any pairings that you specifically would want to see together?
No, I haven't really. And to be honest with you, I'm so focused on trying to figure out this Bruins roster. I will leave it up to the expert that is Kenny.
Well, I appreciate the kind words of expert. I'm certainly no expert. You got to get Dom on here if you want an expert, I'll be honest.
Well, yeah, I mean, that goes without saying. We always want Dom to pop in, but he'll throw his little comments in here and there.
So,
yeah, I mean, if there's one thing that I would say, I want to see more Jackson Edward. Last season, he was a guy that was rotating out, and when he was playing consistently, he was very, very good, but he couldn't play consistently. My favorite fact about, Billy Sweezy still under there. So I'm sure he's going to be a third pairing guy. Honestly, Sweezy wasn't even too bad last season. He got injured a few times. He got injured early in a trip up to Laval, got injured late in the season as well. But I want to see more Jackson Edward for sure. My first ever game watching Jackson Edward, he 5 minutes into the game had 2 disgusting turnovers and then skated all the way from across the ice, mind you, 10 minutes into the Prospects Challenge game, and horse collar tackled somebody from the Columbus Blue Jackets and was sent to the box. And that also goes into the story of him getting sent down to Maine, where he was suspended his first game for fighting off the draw. I mean, come on. I want to see some of that in Providence for sure. But
if he
he
can stay on
definitely
the
has
ice,
skill.
Bruins fans are gonna love him.
They are gonna love him. He's a fun guy to watch. You're always gonna be entertained. I'll tell you that. But
Yeah.
offensively, he was good. So, and also I got to see his first goal live, which was against Bridgeport. So does it really count? I'll leave that up to everybody else. But yeah, I mean, keep Ty Gallagher on the first pairing regardless. I mean, somebody's gonna come down. It's gonna be Soderstrom or Harris. So keep those two together. Have Callahan play. Keep Brunet in the lineup. And then you also have Warner, and then you also have.
But I was just gonna say, before you get back to the right side, though, you just put Harris, Callahan, and Brunet on your left side. Where's Loke Johansson?
Yeah, yeah.
See what I mean?
There's gonna be issues. It's just, it's difficult, and it's so hard because Providence had a few odd men out last year. Guys like Kuntar, who was an odd man out. Even Riley Duran early in the season was an odd man out. And you look at the way that he played at the end of the season, it's just so difficult. And then, you wonder why you pick up guys like Colin Felix and, like what is it, Jonathan Asperat too? I'm sure those guys are probably going to be going to Maine. Like, you don't need that much depth. You have a lot of young guys, but you also need to figure out how to get veterans in there as well, because those are the guys who you want to learn from as well. You want a guy like Michael Callahan playing with younger players.
Dom adds, Edward got a 2-game suspension in the OHL for throwing a glove at the camera.
Awesome.
Why do I feel like he is the one that the Happy Gilmore character is based off of?
It was insane. He had a nice mustache going last year too. First year in the league, he was great. Unbelievable guy.
I wonder if they try to do something where they pin someone like Michael Callahan or Jordan Harris with Jackson Edward, because he plays his offside, and they just go veteran, essentially rookie, help him learn how to control himself, please. And so I can see Edward being kind of that 8th guy in the lineup. And then either Brunet or Johansson, one of those guys possibly being that 7th guy. It's just a matter of, who do you think is more ready? Like, do you want to see more out of, Johansson and Brunet can easily sub in for each other in the lineup because they both have that offensive ability. So do you just kind of rotate them in on a third pairing and just kind of go with it? Like, that's going to be the question for approach anyway. And as Don points out, they still have not announced an affiliation agreement with Maine.
Right.
So
I have a feeling like something's going on, because I saw something, Rick Kowalski just got signed down for Maine, and I believe Evan Gold made a statement on it. And also,
their agreement doesn't run out, I think, until mid-September. I think that's when it officially ends.
Yeah.
So it's like between now and then, if they don't get an affiliation agreement in place, then it's over. But at the same time, even if it ended, it's not like they can't come to an agreement a week later and, not much. So I don't know what the ramifications would be in that regard, but, it's the ECHL seems to be not quite the developmental league that we want for the AHL yet, that it should be, but some teams are starting to get there.
Yeah, so. and that was not that really wasn't Boston and Providence last season. I mean, we saw Jackson Edward go down late in the season. We saw Nolan Meyer, and we saw I believe Bishop came up for a practice, didn't even play. I mean, other than
he
that,
backed up a game.
Yeah, I mean, you got a ton of people just getting sent down, and then last year Jimmy Lambert, he was their first game in Providence, got sent down immediately over to the DEL. So, the guys aren't too happy about being sent down to the ECHL. But yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's hard.
Well, it's better than not playing, right?
Yeah, right. It's also just as hard as to come up with this God-forcocked lineup. So back to the lineup, unless Kenny, Gayle, did you have any other thoughts on the defense?
Not me.
At any level? Okay.
Not me.
Gayle, I know
Yes,
you
sir.
are hellbent, I think would be the right word, on the Geeky Lindholm Pasternak line staying together.
Oh, 100%. If they break up that line, then I just don't see how you break up that line. I mean, you look at Morgan Geeky had a career year playing with David Pasternak. David Pasternak scored 106 points again. And then down the stretch, yeah, Lindholm didn't have the greatest season. He only scored 47 points, but he had 15 points in his final 17 games. You know what I mean? When his back was healthy. And the three of them played so well together down the stretch. I just don't see why you would consider breaking them up.
Kenny, are you as married to that line as she is?
I think that's how the season should start. And honestly, it goes even further with Lindholm because he had such a great world championship too. Like he was
Correct.
so much fun to watch, and he was playing third line with the Swedes. So,
and even it started actually in the Four Nations.
Yeah,
that was when he started to get his groove back. Was in Four Nations.
I don't disagree. I think that's how it's going to start, and I think it's how it should start. However, I'm open to the idea of seeing what else you have in preseason, and if something else looks like it can click, I'm not against it. I don't think anything will, so that's the line that I would stick with as your top line. However, I think, and I know you're shaking your head, I see it. But
because it's like saying it makes no sense to me. You have your pairing of Pasternak and Geeky that work so well together, right? That's just like Bergeron and Marchand. I mean, obviously not the same, but you get what I'm saying. And then you finally have your center that clicked with them and elevated them as well as his own game, which they were trying to start that. I mean, last season they were trying to start with Pasternak, Zacha, and Lindholm, but Lindholm's back was hurt. So I get that. That's why Lindholm played a lot of the season down on the third line. I'm okay with that because he was injured. Once he became uninjured and he played phenomenal, I just don't see why you mess with that when you know what you're going to get from that top line. You need to worry about your second, third, and fourth lines. And you're not going to spread out the offense by breaking up those three players. It's not like when they broke up Pasternak, Marchand, and Bergeron to put Jake DeBrusk on the line with Bergeron and Marchand. And you know what I mean? Like you cannot. You have to.
See, and it's funny because Ian says that the second line might need Geeky to give him some scoring. I'm not sure
because you have Zacha and Arvidsson, and I think that with Arvidsson with the shot first mentality, yes, again had a crappy season in Edmonton, but he also, I mean, he wasn't utilized in Edmonton either. But you have Arvidsson, who is a shot first mentality, and Zacha, and then you probably have Middlestat, who, yes, again, did not play 100% great, but again, came over at the trade deadline, a lot different. He now will have a full season, a full training camp, a full preseason, everything under his belt to build that chemistry with Zacha and Arvidsson. And if not, then you have Fraser Minton that slides up into that slot.
I just, I don't know if spreading out the offense like that is going to be like how people think it's going to be. Like I don't necessarily think Home and Geeky are those guys that can go play with, you know, second and third liners and put up the points that they were. You're just stunting the first line. Correct. So putting these guys together, it fits, it works. Work around that. I think having one line of solid offense is going to be.
And as you put it, work around that. That was kind of my mindset going into my exercise here, because again, I would just see what you could get from a Geeky Lindholm Arvidsson or,
What?
in preseason.
Oh, no. First of all, they're barely going to play preseason. They're going to give the younger kids more time in preseason than they are. David Pastrnak's probably going to play 1 or 2 games. Lindholm's going to play 1 or 2 games. You know what I mean? And they're not even going to play full games. They're going to play limited minutes. They are not going to risk, because Marco Sturm doesn't need to watch David Pastrnak on the ice. He needs to watch Fabian Lysell. He needs to watch Matthew Poitras. He needs to watch Georgi Merkulov. He needs to watch, Fraser Minton, Husadinov. Those are the players that he needs to see what he can get out of. Not a Pastrnak, not a Geeky, not a Lindholm, not a Zacha, not an Arvidsson. Those players, they're not it always drives me insane when people complain that your vets aren't playing preseason. They shouldn't be playing preseason.
I'm not complaining about that. And I agree. I don't think they're going to see a lot of time overall, but you also need to know, is Arvidsson the better fit for what happens mid-game if Pastrnak goes off to the room for something and you need, and you're doing you still need to get
Stop with the what ifs though, Chris, because there is no what ifs. You know what I mean? You can't say what if Pastrnak breaks his finger, because if Pastrnak breaks his finger, they need to go get another forward. They're not filling his roster spot with Arvidsson.
It depends on how much time he's missing.
Oh my God.
If you're without Pastrnak for a week, you're addressing it very differently than if you're without him for 6 months.
But if they're missing Pastrnak for a week, then they're probably bringing someone out from Providence and just trying to tread water for that week.
Possibly,
they're not,
yeah.
You know what I mean? But if they're missing him, because that was the thing with Lindholm. When Lindholm got hurt last year, talking about Hampus now, when Hampus got hurt, the reason why they didn't go out and get a defenseman is because he was originally going to be back a lot quicker.
Yes, that was absolutely the plan.
So that was the plan. So the Bruins are not going to just go, bam, we're going to do this. And the other thing is so when Bergeron got hurt, they didn't know who was going to fill his spot. You never know those things. You unfortunately never know those things, because you're not going to risk going, oh, let's see what happens if David Pastrnak gets hurt, so we need to try this line. That's not how the Bruins think. That's not how any NHL team thinks. They don't go, oh, if Connor McDavid gets hurt, we need to find out who else can fill it. That's not how they work. They go with what works, and then if something happens, then they go on the fly and try and fix it. It's always the next man up mentality. They're not doing it beforehand in the what if scenario.
I mean, like I said, I'm keeping that top line together. All right. Real quick, Beamer Head 11 says Pastrnak or Geeky isn't scoring 30 without Pasta. Bob adds on, unlikely Geeky maintains his 22% scoring percentage, the shooting percentage there. Ian likes your what if thing. What if we get a time machine and get a young Bobby Orr? And Dom adds in, if they lose Pasta to injury, every game is a scheduled loss while he's out. Doesn't matter who fills his spot.
Exactly.
Sure.
That's why I'm saying, it doesn't matter. I don't see Sturm going, oh, I'm going to put Zacha on the top line and Geeky down with Arvidsson, when they're not going to generate the offense that they need to generate. The people that are the line that's going to generate the most offense is going to be Pasta, Lindholm, and Geeky.
As your top line, I agree with that. 100%. So I think we're all in agreement on that first line.
Zacha playing the wing as opposed down the middle. We had this conversation a few times. Zacha plays more free when he plays on the wing, and he plays better without Pastrnak because he's looking for the shot instead of the pass.
Yes. I know we've talked about that a lot, and Kenny, you're nodding. I think you agree with that sentiment as well.
No, I just, I think it's funny. This is how deep we are in the off season. There's so little to talk about that. We're trying to create scenarios where Pasta's getting injured and who's going to fill in if that happens.
No.
I'm not trying to create a scenario.
We are not. Chris is, not we. Gayle never does that.
If Jano gets hurt, they'll move Geeky down to fill his spot from Dom.
No, I'm thinking they're going to move Geeky all the way down to fill the role of Castellic. I mean, if we're going to go there, we
shift him over to the center too, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? Freddie Burnett, he can just slide right up and be that left wing again, right?
Listen, people want to try Lori on offense. Move him up.
Something like that. Move
Yeah,
him
like
into that 1C
back
spot.
all over again.
I mean,
you just throw a
let's be
defenseman up on
realistic.
forward.
Let's be realistic. If Lysell, Patra, and Mark all three of them start the season in Providence.
Fans are going to have a conniption.
But if any of those three start the season in Providence and any of the top 6 forwards get hurt, they're getting called up. That's your answer.
Yeah.
That's your answer.
Well, first, I'd like to say I love Georgi Merkulov. Have his jersey in the back. Can't speak highly enough for him, but the reality is with him is you need to have him on the power play to get the full Georgi Merkulov effect. So you need to be able to put him there. And that's the thing is like, you know, I was listening to this scout talk and it's just like, how many transferable goals are you going to be able to bring to the next level, right? If half your goals are on the power play and you're not playing in the power play, well, now you're only a 10 goal guy. You know?
Yep.
So if you need to bring Georgi Merkulov up in the perfect scenario, and that needs to be part of the scenario. He needs to be on the power play.
I think Merkulov is your top line left wing down in Providence.
Right. Just if he doesn't crack this lineup, who's to say that he doesn't beat out? I mean,
I was gonna say pick your name carefully here because
I know
I don't see him beating anyone out on this
because
roster.
that's the conversation we have all the time, right? We have this conversation ad nauseum. Who are they pushing out of the lineup, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who are they going to push out of the lineup? And unless someone's injured, he's not pissing. He's not pushing anyone out of the lineup.
I'm sure he's pissing someone off in the lineup. Though.
Now, he could play, and again, Bruins fans don't want to hear this. He's not cracking your top 6. So if he ends up starting the season in Boston, he's on your 3rd or 4th line, which means limited minutes, no power play time. And what is he benefiting from? He's benefiting from nothing.
Who cares about what he's benefiting from? What is the team benefiting from? Nothing, because he's not playing on the power play.
Right. Well, it's the same thing. He's not benefiting because he's not able to show what he can do.
It's
and
serving
the
nobody.
Team's not benefiting because he's not able to show what he can do.
Exactly. So nobody should really be upset by this because Merkulov isn't going to be able to show off.
Are you new
the
to
team
Bruins
isn't going to
fandom?
benefit. It's just, you know.
Nobody is a youngin.
Kenny, are you new to Bruins fandom?
No, Boston fandom is brutal. I know they're just gonna say whatever they want. I ran into a ton of Fabian Lysell experts last season telling me that I'm wrong about what I'm saying. I'm like, I'm watching it. Like I'm watching it unfold. You telling me this didn't happen?
Yeah,
I know.
So Merkulov, I have him as the top line left wing in Providence. I don't see, Harrison or, any of the other guys down there on specifically on the left side beating him out.
My biggest struggle that I have is down the middle. They are more deep down the middle than people like to admit.
I know people are still saying that they should go out and get another center, and I'm like,
right.
Where are you gonna put them?
Now they have so much depth down the middle. Where they're lacking depth is left wing.
Real quick, Dom adds the Bruins tell their prospects what to work on, but never, ever, ever put them in position to do it.
Yes and no, because I feel that they told Patra what he needed to do, and he went down and did it in Providence. It took him a little while to find his groove in Providence, but once he did, he was phenomenal in Providence last year.
And with
Kenny,
Patra,
do you agree?
Yeah, you know what it is though? I think it was just a whole mindset shift. Just from looking at the first stint to the second stint, it was the exact same on offense. So the first time he was playing with Letary and Merkulov, both were very high up in the AHL points wise. So you're basically playing with two AHL All-Stars. The second time around, now he's playing with Lachmelis and somebody else, and he's still producing the same amount of points. Offensively was never the question, but physically, playing with some chip. The first time he was getting cross-checked in the back all the time after whistles, going down, because that's how you get to him. That's how you're going to prevent him from scoring goals. Get under his skin after the whistle.
Exactly.
The second time around was different. The second time around, he wasn't taking anything from anybody. He was throwing cross checks, right? He was making plays. He was taking hits. And I would love to reference a clip from the second to last game of the season. They're playing Charlotte, game 4, game tied, 5 minutes left. Or I believe they may have been down by 1. 5 minutes left. Patra makes a beautiful move, goes through the legs, fights off 2 checks, passes it to Wahlstrom. Wahlstrom scores. That is how the second stint went in Providence for Patra. So everybody's worried about him being physical. He could definitely do it. Now, is he going to do it in the NHL? That's the question. Can he do it?
Is he physically capable of doing it in the NHL?
That was the thing when he was in the NHL. All you had to do was one big hit, and it took him out of it. His head could not get back into the game. He worked on that down in Providence, and you're absolutely right. But can it translate to the NHL? Did he work on it enough for it to translate if he makes this lineup in the fall?
I honestly think it's a mindset thing.
Yeah.
I think
if he comes up, a mindset.
I think if he comes up and he does the same thing and thinks the same way he did in Providence, and he goes, I'm not taking shit from anybody. I'm going to get hit. I'm going to get back up. And then guess what? I'm going to go score 2 goals. And that's where I'm going to make it hurt. Right?
Oop.
Can he froze again? Can you bring up Bob Ebb, by the way?
I'm not taking anything after the whistle. He's going to be.
Oh, there we go. Now we got him back. Yeah. This one here, he says, remember that New York Rangers team a few years ago that had Kakko, Lafreniere, and Hedl on their fourth line during their playoff run? Why can't the Bees deploy a young, skilled fourth line versus the same old non-skilled plugs they also deploy in that role?
So, who is it? Beecher. Who was it? Not this past year, the year before. It was because Beecher got sent down. He was up. He got sent down. He came back up and played phenomenal. Last year, we found out he was hurt, and that's why he didn't have great of a season. But the Bruins have done it, right? It's not like they haven't done it. But
you're talking about his rookie season, right?
Yeah.
Let me see if I can pull up that roster real quick. Keep going, though.
But the Bruins have done it to where they're not putting non-skilled plugs. I wouldn't call their fourth line.
It's a different skill set. Plugs.
It's different. So the Bruins they play a different system than New York, number one. Number two, the Bruins have always, we talk about this ad nauseum. The Bruins, their style of play is built from the back out. From goaltending to defense to forward, scoring is last. They want to be hard to play against. They believe if they can prevent their opponents from putting the puck in the net, that if they score 1 goal, they're fine. So they've always been that way. Name when the Bruins haven't been that way.
Am I the only one who lost audio there?
You lost audio?
I'm in the middle of a storm right now, so that's probably why I keep going in and out.
1 second. If you guys can hear each other, feel free to keep going. I think my audio is dying on me here.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. So, but you get what I'm saying, right? Like, the Bruins have always been built on being a hard team to play against. They're not built on, they don't care. I mean, it's not that they don't care, but they've never been a team. It's a fluke when they score more than 3 goals a game. It's a fluke when they, you know what I mean? Like, when they put up those offensive numbers, it's like, it's because the other goaltender is not having a good game. You know what I mean? Like the low scoring games are the type of games that the Bruins want to play. And it's the type of games that they thrive in because, again, they're built from the back end out. They're built from goaltending to defense to their defensive forwards and then their offense. Having a player like David Pastrnak, when was the last time the Bruins had a 50-goal scorer before David Pastrnak?
Am I back?
Yes.
I can hear you. Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, I also
and-
want to
and-
say, like, you know, the Kako, Lafreniere, Hedl fourth line. I mean, that's just that line has been mismanaged. Like Kako didn't thrive in New York, maybe because he's playing fourth line minutes with young guys. Like you're not really putting him in the best situation. Lafreniere had a great season, struggled this year. Hedl not on the team anymore. Like this isn't really a line that I would really like want to replicate because this is famously mismanaged. All three of these players, like yeah, this is just this. When I saw this, I'm just like, yeah, no, I wouldn't want this for the Bruins.
I get what he's saying, where he says it's time to try something new. But first of all, as Gayle pointed out, the system doesn't allow for that because the whole purpose of the fourth line that Boston wants to have is to be a gritty tone setting, forechecking line that, as you said, isn't reliant on scoring as their number one priority. Their third line
could replicate another Merlot line. Bruins fans would be happy.
Oh yeah, appreciate you stopping in, Dom. Have a great night. And tomorrow, Kenny, you should ask me to prepare in case the league switches to acquire Square Puck. Good night, Dom. Have a good one.
But like if the Bruins were able to replicate the Merlot line, right? Bruins fans would not be complaining.
Let me ask you this. How close to that type of energy, because that's what that line was all based on. That line couldn't score worth a lick.
That's not true.
Let's not forget the first two. Well, I don't like the word plugs because some of these guys are skilled. Like I think Jeffrey Gale came up and was skilled and had that goal scoring. And let's not forget, who was the Bruins' best line the first 2 weeks of the season? The fourth line, Beecher, Kastelic, Kepke. They were scoring and they were doing everything, not only just scoring. Like, these guys aren't just terrible players. Like they can get the job done too. Like, so I mean,
think of it. This could be your fourth line: Eyssimont, Kuraly, and Kastelic.
That's the fourth line I put on my sheet.
Are they plug? I don't think they're plugs. I think those are three skilled players that can hit, play defense, score, and drop the gloves if they need to.
That's exactly the line that I have on my sheet here. Those three guys, I think scoring wise, you're able to get something out of Eyssimont and Kuraly. Again, when I say that the Merlot line couldn't score, I'm talking in relation to what you would expect from a first or second line. They could score for what they were.
But no one expected them to put up the goals that Bergeron and Recchi were putting up and Krejci and Horton and Lucic were putting up. No one was expecting them to do that. If you remember that early in that season, Brad Marchand was on the third and fourth line. He got promoted as the season went on. You know what I mean? Like he didn't just play with Bergeron and Recchi.
Right. I think as far as the offensive upside, the physicality, the defense ability as well, and the tone setting, Eyssimont, Kuraly, and Kastelic is your fourth line.
Right.
In my opinion.
That's who I have. That's what I have.
I'll say, Rob, I kind of tore apart that comment there, because you said fourth line and plugs and all that, but I wouldn't mind like a young, skilled third line, depending on who you put there. Like just, fourth line, putting in a ton of skill guys and taking away from those other players and calling them plugs. That's kind of where, my problem was.
I think you're going to see Jeannot on the third line, and that could be where people are calling a plug. And I'm not calling him a plug. He belongs on your third or fourth line, right?
There's your thumbs up now.
What? How?
I don't know. You said Jeannot on your third line. I'm not calling him a plug, and the system went, yeah, I agree.
But I'm not. But Beecher needs to come off that fourth line and go to that third line, or Husadinov needs to be on that third line, or Mitten needs to be on that third line, or even one of those younger centers needs to be on the third line. They can't be relegated down to the fourth line. They need to be on your third line.
Here's the kicker that I think might surprise both of you on my sheet here as I was going through this. I have Beecher going to Providence.
No, I think that's fine.
I think it depends on who takes that spot. If it's Patra and he's willing and he's able to do what he did the first 9 games, before he got injured in the NHL, you know what I mean? And implement what he learned in Providence, then I don't have a problem with that.
I have all the faith in the world that Patra can do that, because every time we've seen him come back from something, as Kenny pointed out, he learns, he executes, he improves. He gets a setback, he learns, he executes, he improves, and it's a constant pattern. I actually have him penciled in as your third line center next to Tanner Jeannot.
I have Jeannot and Blumel,
Thoughts on Patra before, because I'm going to probably say a couple more things that set her off in a minute, Kenny. I want to let you get a word in here first.
I've seen Chris's list, so I don't know how much he's changed from the last time I saw it, which was yesterday. But honestly, it's fun to think about. But I definitely like Blumel and Patra being together. I mean, Blumel just scores at will. I mean, my gosh, watching him last year with Texas, he's so fun to watch, and putting him with a guy like Patra could really, get some things going. So I'm not against that at all.
I don't hate that idea.
That's my third line. Either if it's not Patra, then it needs to be Beecher, and if it's not Beecher, then it needs to be Mitten. If it's not Mitten, it needs to be Husadinov. You know what I mean? That's where I think that as long as you have that youth with Blumel, and then having that vet who can not only, is he going to produce? Yes, not like Pasternak, Geeky, Zaka, and whatever, but he's also that protection factor. We lost Kenny again.
Yeah,
so
bring him back on. He's already here again.
Having Jeannot is that protection factor.
Welcome back, Kenny. Bob says, so again,
you're probably going to have to welcome me back a few more times. It's been brutal tonight.
Stupid internet connections, but Bob says that, so again, put Patra in a position to fail with Jeannot on his wing. And I don't think that could be further from the truth.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I think
having that veteran is going to help him.
It's not even just that for me. If you look at Tanner Jeannot when he had his 40-point season, 24 goals in Nashville, he was utilized in a much more offensive capacity. He had 124 shots that season, and he averaged almost 16 minutes of ice time. And I'm not saying he's going to get that on the third line with Boston, but he is put in a position where he can do that when you have a playmaker and a puck distributor next to him, like Matthew Patra. He, similar to what Morgan Geekie was when they brought him in, he has a decent shot when he's able to use it. He went to Tampa Bay, who used him in a fourth line role. They used him as a fourth line plug banger role. And then everybody went, where's his offense? He wasn't put out there to be anything more than that fourth liner. Then when you see him go to the Kings, he gets even less time. He's even more on a fourth line banger role. If you can put him next to someone like Matthew Patra, who, like you said, is a little on the smaller side and needs the physicality next to him, Tanner Jeannot is absolutely freed up to play his game and be what Morgan Geekie was his first year here. That third line guy that everybody goes, wait a minute, who?
Right. Well, and the other thing is too is if you bring up B Muirhead, whatever his, I apologize. If
We're gonna butcher usernames. I'm used to that.
I'm just gonna call him Head. No, Head 11. Head 11.
Head 11.
Have a
Head 11. I think that the second line center role is Middlestats to lose. I think they're going to start with him there. But if someone outplays him, I don't think that Sturm will do the same thing that Sacco did with Coyle and not move him. You know what I mean? I think because I think that if Middlestat doesn't build that chemistry with Zucker and Arvidsson, and either Patra or anyone comes in and is showing that spark, that's the center I think that they'll flip, is the second and third line centers. I don't think Lindholm's going to come down. Unless if Patra comes in completely on fire and is even outplaying Lindholm, I'm not opposed to looking at geeky Patra Pasnak, but I don't see that happening. I think what makes that top line,
she isn't totally against it.
No, but what makes that top line also unique is they're all right-handed shots.
Yeah, well, so is Patra.
But okay. But I don't think
I'm just giving you a hard time over that.
Right. But the other thing, but I think Patra moving into that second line with Arvidsson and Zacha could be successful. And then you get Middlestat down with Jeannot and Blumel. My only thought process is that I think Patra is going to even elevate Blumel. You know what I mean? And I don't think Patra needs to elevate Arvidsson or Zacha. I think that if they have that second and third line spreading out that offense more than because then you're taking a little bit of pressure off that top line.
So real quick, I'll give you the last two spots of what I have. One of the thought processes that I had, and we'll come back to Head 11's comment here. I actually have Zacha on the left wing of the third line next to Patra and Jeannot. And I have Blumel on the second line next to Middlestat and Arvidsson for two reasons. One, Blumel is every bit as good a shooter as Zacha, but if you have Blumel, Patra, and Jeannot, you have one guy who can take faceoffs on that line. Zacha and Patra paired together, that gives you a veteran presence in Pavel Zacha on that line who can also shift in and take a draw. Zacha is a left shot, Patra is a right shot. They like having that option. And Middlestat can have two shooters on his wings, giving him the most possible chance to be successful in a 2C role. I think for him, it's 2C or 7th or 9th floor. I don't think they're going to move him around the lineup and try him at third line left wing or anything like that. They're going to try to play him enough to build some value to move on from him, because I know RG Media is trying to sit here and say people are finally realizing this, but Kenny, I think you and I had the conversation. When they made that Coyle trade, they wanted the second round pick and they wanted William Zellers. In order to get those two assets, they had to take Casey Middlestat. They didn't want to. They were in a position similar to how they had to take a goaltender back in the Ullmark trade. They had to choose between Korpisalo or Anton Forsberg. They made a choice based off of the other options and what they could get back.
I mean,
Zellers and the pick were the target.
I mean, we also have to be, a little bit fair. Boston needed some players to play in the NHL. So,
sure.
I mean, taking back Middlestat wasn't the worst thing in the world, but I just wanted to talk about Jeannot. The first thing that sticks out is when you say Tanner Jeannot, people are already filled with rage. It doesn't matter what you're about to say.
Yep.
Doesn't matter how you're gonna, spin it.
I told you he knew the fan base.
Their faces are already red when you bring up that name. So that's the first thing. But the second thing is something stuck out to me when Don Sweeney was talking. I think it was a press conference after the trade deadline. He said his scouts went out and found players who deserved more minutes and weren't getting them. Underutilized players at other organizations. And I think that's basically what you just said about Janelle, right? He's a guy that wasn't really being used to his full effect. Boston goes out and gets him. Now he's playing with, or now he could be third line with Patra, and it's going to be fine. Interesting enough, I see a lot of people who want Fraser Minton to be in this lineup. I don't have him in the lineup, and it's a little bit unfortunate because I like Minton, but I think Patra plays a very good offensive game. Minton plays a very good defensive game, but Minton's offensive game isn't, necessarily there yet. I think it'd be good for him to go work on that down in Providence. And at this point, your team's going to need to score goals. So having the offensive guy come up probably is the better choice at this point.
But so I'm going to play devil's advocate there for a second. If you're talking third or fourth line, you're not expecting as much offense out of those two lines. You're looking for the shutdown, the better defense. You know what I mean? Because again, that's how the Bruins play their game. Now, Marco Sturm could come in and do a completely overhaul on the system. Is that going to win him any points with Don Sweeney, Cam Neely, and the rest of the coaching staff? Maybe, maybe not. You never know. But the Bruins notoriously have been built that way. So when you're looking at your third and fourth line, offense is a plus. It's the defense that generates the third and fourth lines.
I think you could see Minton paired with Dalton Bancroft down in Providence to see if those two can build what would eventually be third line chemistry for Boston. And am I a huge fan of Minton going down to Providence? I like his game. And to your point, Kenny, there's nothing wrong with having him on the NHL roster. I just think you're better off having, possible offense in a guy like Alex Steves off of your bench, and what you can get from a guy like Marat Hustadinov as far as energy and, speed and forechecking, what he can bring to the lineup there. Plus, those guys require waivers. Minton does not. And I know people are sick and tired of hearing that, but it is a little bit of a factor, and it has to be. Because right now, if you look at the way the lineup is set up, you can put a reasonably good lineup together and not lose anybody to waivers.
Well, and the other thing is that you have to remember, if you have a Hustadinov in your lineup, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the third or fourth line, because he's not playing anywhere above the third or fourth line. Not as the roster as it stands. He's not playing anywhere above your third or fourth line. If you have Patra, he could possibly be your 2, 3, definitely not 4, definitely not 1, right? He's starting somewhere in the middle 6, most likely. If you have Beecher, again, third or fourth line, not going above that. Middlestat and Patra are your two best options.
You mean Middlestat and Zaka?
No, Middlestat and Patra are your best two options for your second or third line center, where everyone else is your third or fourth line center, right? Because we've already established Lindholm as number 1. And I don't see Lindholm dropping down to the way he did last season. You know what I mean? Possibly maybe the second line. I'm really not entertaining it though. So you're looking at those options. When you look at those options, who are your best options?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, also, I'm thinking about it like this, obviously somebody who's more with Providence. I mean, I guess, I'm watching both teams equally, but if both players are at the same level for me, it's not necessarily about who might inch out the other, but maybe who's going to benefit more from playing in Providence than the other. If they're both NHL caliber and can probably make the team and play well. And I honestly think Fraser Minton would benefit more from Providence. And, that being said, he goes down to Providence. He plays on the power play. He plays on the penalty kill, both first unit. He
very good. What Patra did last year.
Yeah. Yep. So, and I would just like to say, right, you look at the stats again, Minton 7 points in 11 games. Okay, that's not too bad. But then you realize, okay, 4 of those points came in one game, and all of those points came from in front of the net, right? Merkulov sliding it to the front and him just batting it home. I mean, you look again, he was playing against Springfield. A few of them were power play. The last point was a shot from the point that gets, directed down by Duran and it goes in. So I think Minten could really benefit from getting going offensively down in Providence. And I think Patra's just, like I said, I think you could make an argument for both, but I think Minten would thrive more in the AHL, just even for a little bit, just to try it out.
But again, we could also now put into fact that say they both are making that push, right? Say they're both making that push. Patra's your number 3 center or number 2, you know what I mean? Why can't Minten be on your 4th line?
He could be. He can fit there. And,
you know what I mean?
Have,
he could fit on your 4th line with Eastimont and Kastelik. You know what I mean? He could fit there.
Yeah, and now you have Corrali coming in off the bench. And Head 11 says with his defensive-oriented play, does Minten project more as a future 4C?
Right. Well, and the other thing is, in having Corrali come off the bench or on, being on the 9th floor, that's not a bad scenario. You know what I mean?
No.
It's not a bad scenario. It's just like Patrick Brown. Like we talk about it again ad nauseum, having that veteran player that if someone goes down or they need a night off or for whatever reason, you have that veteran player that you can just slide in and you know what you're going to get from them.
Patrick Brown, another one of those players that when the Bruins fans hear it, their faces just go red. The steam comes out the ears.
They don't see the value outside of the big name players, and they think that these players are blocking the prospects when they're not. They're benefiting the prospects by their leadership, by their experience, by their professionalism. Everything that they're teaching these young players is a benefit to the prospects. They're not blocking them. Again, if Matthew Patra is better than Casey Middlestat, he should not be blocked, and he won't be blocked. But that's the thing. They have to push him out of the lineup, and they have to be able to do it on a regular basis. It can't be 1 game on, 1 game off, 1 game on, 3 games off. They have to put it out there on a consistent basis. And I'm not talking about, because we saw the ups and downs of Jake DeBrusk. We saw the ups and downs of, there's numerous players that you can talk about that are.
We saw it with Brad Marchand.
Right. Streaky goal scorers. It happens. Not everyone is David Pastrnak. Even David Pastrnak started the season off wicked slow last year. Right. So that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the effort has to be there. Not shutting down because you make a mistake. That's why Mason Lohrei never was out of the lineup last year, because even when he made a mistake, he went out and gave it 100% his next shift. He didn't sit on the bench and go, oh, woe is me, and get in his head and not be able to turn it around. That was something, like you said, that Patra couldn't do at different points. So these players are not going to get blocked if they can show that they can handle the NHL schedule and the NHL play, in the NHL, everything about being in the AHL, in the NCAA, the ECHL, the OHL. Like, they're all different leagues from the NHL. You have to be able to do it on a consistent basis. If they can do it on a consistent basis, they're going to push those players out of the lineup, like a Middlestat, like a Corrali. Those are the players you want to push out.
Yeah, I think that's sorry. I was just going to say, I think that's just a great point. Like, something that I love about Mason Lohrei last season is that he knew he was skilled, and he doesn't care if he gets stripped. He's going to try that move again.
Right.
And he's going to keep trying it until it works, because he relies on his skill. He knows he has the skill to do it. He just needs to figure out when is the right moment to do this opposed to something else. Matt Patra last season, we saw it, when he was struggling. I know he's not a shot first guy, but he was taking no shots. He was passing the puck every time. And that makes you an easy person to defend, regardless of how skilled you are as a passer. If everybody knows that you're going to pass that puck, then nobody's going to sit on you. They're just, they sit on everybody else because you're not going to shoot. So if Patra can, fix that, which he did in Providence. He was definitely shooting the puck. I mean, he second longest streak in the AHL, scoring streak, 7 straight games scoring a goal. I mean, that would be a massive improvement. And again, I think it's just mental. I think it's mental.
Oh, yeah.
And I hope this season has built some confidence because he was Providence's best player down the stretch.
Yeah, and what Gayle was talking about players beating each other out, I saw this comment from Bob a little earlier where he said Poitras and Minton will play over Beecher. They'll play higher in the lineup for sure. It's just neither one of them, maybe Minton would go on the fourth line, but neither one of them, like Poitra's not going in a fourth line role. So if your opening is on your fourth line, you're not putting Matthew Poitras there. That is where John Beecher's going to play. Mm-hmm. As we're talking about Matthew Poitras and where his weaknesses are, the physicality and learning to play through it, that is absolutely a spot. Someone mentioned it earlier. That is a spot for failure for him, not next to Tanner Jeannot. Tanner Jeannot has shown that he has an ability with the right people around him, he can score. Now, is Matthew Poitras the right player? We don't know. But his skill set of being able to pass first, but also, as you talked about, Kenny, draw the defender when he is shooting, when he's in the right mindset and he's on his game. If we get that Matthew Poitras mindset from his second stint in Providence, where he gets a 7-game goal streak, where he's shooting the puck, he's getting back up physically, he's not backing down from anybody, and you pair that with a Tanner Jeannot, you might just be able to get what you saw from Tanner Jeannot when he scored 40 points.
Right.
Yeah, well, I'll ask about this. I mean, do you want to put Minton in the 4C role? I mean, would it be better to put him in Providence and have him develop a little bit more? Maybe that offensive game, maybe put Beecher in the and again, I don't think putting Minton on the fourth line is, a bad thing. He could still play penalty. He's still going to be a penalty killer, hopefully. I mean, that's what Beecher does now. So there is benefits to both. It's just, what do you want to do?
Right. Bob then adds, Poitras and Minton should play over half the forwards on the team. It also depends on what your goals are. We are not the San Jose Sharks, where we're sitting here going, every player under the age of 25 needs ice time. The Bruins are not the Sharks. They're not the Chicago Blackhawks. They're not even the Buffalo Sabres. All right. And you don't want to be those franchises either, because that's when a player like David Pastrnak says, I want out. Mm-hmm. That's when Charlie McAvoy says, I want out, is when you're perpetually doing what those teams did. We just saw it this offseason where Buffalo had to trade JJ Peterka for Michael Kesselring, and they're hoping that Kesselring can help solidify the right side of their defense, when you should have been able to get a hell of a lot more for someone like JJ Peterka. They had to take less on a restricted free agent who didn't want to re-sign with them because they're perpetually rebuilding.
Right.
So what does Boston do instead? They go out and they've identified where their weaknesses were as far as younger talent. All right. The younger talent that was missing were the Matthew Poitras, the Fraser Mintons, James Hagens, Will Zellers. Like, you needed to bring some of that into the organization. They did that. Then they also saw, hey, our locker room is weak and we're lacking in leadership, direction, and everything that certain guys that we've lost bring. And that's where their offseason of Tanner Jeannot, Sean Corrali, Michael Eyssimont, that's where those guys come into play. And now it's a matter of figuring out from the mix, what is the best group to keep and who are you okay with walking away from?
I wanted to bring up, I was thinking about this. You mentioned last time that something about the locker room and it being known that there was something going on in the locker room. And as someone that was in that locker room, that's not true. So I don't know where that came from.
What do you remember what I was talking about? And
I don't know. And I remember it bothering me.
Bob said that we're closer to those teams than you are the Panthers, which let me ask you guys, do you guys think we're closer to being a rebuilding team or closer to being a cup contending team based on what they're trying to do?
They're a wild card team.
So by default, if you're making the playoffs, you are closer to a contender than you are towards.
But I'm not putting them as they're contending for the Stanley Cup. They're a wild card team, because they are still until we see what that secondary scoring is. You know what I mean? Because we know what their frontline scoring is. We are banking on the fact that the Bruins will have a bounce back year in net with Swayman, given how he played in Worlds and down the stretch, having the full camp, everything. Like, we're banking on the fact that there's no contract looming over his head. There's no anything. You're banking on your top two defensemen being healthy. You're banking on your top line gelling the way they did down the stretch. So that's why I'm saying they're closer to the Panthers, still not Stanley Cup contenders. They're closer to the Panthers than they are to the San Jose Sharks or Chicago or Buffalo. You know what I mean? Like, Pittsburgh. Or even Pittsburgh. You know what I mean? Like, I look at those teams and I'm going, yeah, they're not making the playoffs. I think the Bruins can make the playoffs if, and this is the only time I say if, all the things that I just listed come to fruition.
Yeah, but the other thing I would want to add too, Bob, is if you're trying to be the Florida Panthers, you're going to lose to the Florida Panthers because you do not have Sam Miskevich, Sam Bennett, Alexander Barkov. You don't have Brad Marchand on your third line. You had that team in 2023 when you had Taylor Hall on your third line.
Right.
You've had that roster before. You blew it with that roster. You cannot, you're trying to become that roster again, but there's a reason why we haven't seen another roster do as well as that one has in any length of time. Because in order to do that, it's not sustainable. And yeah, the Panthers have back-to-back cups. And I know a lot of people are going to be sitting here picking them to win a third. Is it really sustainable for them to be the favorite to win a third cup? Is that really where we're at right now? Just because of how much hockey they've played, how much they've beaten themselves up. Is there a way for it to happen? Absolutely. But if you try to be them and try to be two-time defending champions, you are not that. You have to beat that.
Well, and the other thing is that you can't, you look at Tampa, right? Mm-hmm. What was the absolute number one factor of them during their dominance?
They had depth, scoring depth.
And who's
goaltending and defense?
Who's between the pipes, right?
Yep.
I'm not sure that Bobrovsky is that much better than Swayman when Swayman is playing the way he was when he took the net from Allmark.
Especially in that playoff.
Especially Bobrovsky, yes, he does have the experience. But when Swayman is playing with that swagger and that confidence, I would take him over Bobrovsky any day of the week.
Kenny, I think we've had the conversation before. Going into this year, if you've got the extra $5, I'd throw it on Swayman for a Vezina caliber season.
Yeah, I'd love to see him battle back. I mean, listen, last season just had so many variables that it's hard to blame him, and it's hard to think that he can't come back. I know people are already writing him off. I know people are already like, Michael DiPietro's the next wave of...
Because Bruins fans hate their goaltenders.
Only the starter. They love the backup.
Of course.
Unless it's Korpisalo. Then they like The guy
DPHO,
behind him.
the third option, the third one.
Well, it's funny
Stronger
because
backup.
they hated Tim Thomas and they wanted Tuukka Rask to be the starter. And then Tuukka Rask was the starter and they wanted Tim Thomas to be the starter. And then Tim Thomas backstopped them to the 2011 championship. And everyone was Tim Thomas. But even though Tuukka Rask did everything he could to win them 2 Stanley Cups in 13 and 19, it wasn't his fault that they didn't win in 13 or 19. Everyone hates Tuukka Rask. Oh, but by the way, he's the best goaltender in Bruins history.
Yeah, and what was the problem that they had in both the 2013 and 19 Cups that Tuukka lost? Last time I checked, it wasn't him allowing goals.
Correct.
I'm pretty sure you lost because you couldn't find the back of the other team's net.
Yeah.
So
that's with all Boston sports, by the way. You know, the Celtics lose, and then Jaylen Brown. Oh, he's the problem. He was the problem for years, and then they won. Now he's the best. Lose again. Now he's the problem. You know, it's just how Boston sports fans are. Same with Jarren Duran on the Red Sox right now. I mean, I'm not a Patriots fan, so I wouldn't really know what's going on over there. But this is just how it is. Boston sports fans, you know, when you're winning, it's the best thing in the world. When it's losing, everybody's a problem.
GVK Media says, I'm in the camp that had the Bruins in the top 3 of the Atlantic. Swayman plus the defense and the balance up front equals way better than what's expected. I don't know if I'd say top 3, and like I don't know if I'm there yet. I mean,
but top
you are
3
going to see a push.
Top 3 is probably a wild card. I mean, because they're going to teeter between that 3rd and 4th spot. Because because
here's the big wild card, though. What is Toronto going to do without the offense that Mitch Marner gave them? What are they going to do? Like, we think they're better. We think they're more balanced.
Because everyone in Toronto thinks that they're better without Mitch Marner.
Yeah, Mitch Marner's there, Tuukka Rask. But we think they're better. But we haven't seen them play yet without him. We haven't seen what they are like. We haven't seen. I mean, you know, Florida's still banged up from back-to-back runs. How long are they going to be? You know, remember when Tampa came from their back-to-back runs? Their following season, no one was healthy.
Right.
So if that translates to Florida might not even make the playoffs, despite how good their roster is.
I think we've
now you
talked
have 2
about
spots in the top 3.
I think we've talked about it, Chris, where we were talking about just the celebration. The first celebration when they won the cup, it was like, you know, there's a job. We're still a good team. Next year, like we got it. We could celebrate for a little bit, but then we have to get after it. And then this year, you could see them going all out. Like they know this is probably not going to happen again. This is going to be difficult to replicate. So, you know, who knows? But it's funny because I see people on social media, Bruins fans, you know how it is. They think that this team is going to be the same team that was after the trade deadline. They think that this team's on McKenna watch. And it's just, it's not where it is. It's not, it's not that bad.
As Head 11 says, Montreal and Ottawa are also better. Absolutely. How are they going to be? And when you have Montreal and Ottawa who are better, and now they're playing against Florida, who is banged up, and against Toronto, who's not the same team that they once were, you know, if Ottawa and Montreal can steal a few points from Toronto, and you're able to still steal a few points from Ottawa and Montreal and a few points from Toronto, now all of a sudden you're elevated in the standings. Again, maybe not to, you know, we'd all love for them to win the division, but is it realistic? Probably not. Probably not.
Well, when every team is difficult to play against, when every team, you know, fights with every other team in the division, you have no idea how those rankings are going to shape out. It's the same like how I view kind of Hockey East in college. It's like every night it's going to be a battle. There are no free points in the Hockey East, and that's why you see sometimes, you know, a UMass Lowell at the top. Sometimes you see a Providence College. It's just because it's, you know, it happens sometimes. Every night it's going to be a difficult game, and then when that happens, you have no idea how these rankings are going to shake out.
And Bob adds here, sorry, something's going on here. He adds offensively, the Bees are probably 5th or 6th in their division. I don't know if you guys are able to see that comment at all. Oh, I think I'm lagging a little. And offensively, yeah, they don't have the Nick Suzuki or the Ivan Davidov or, you know, someone like that. But defensively, like, no, they don't have Lane Hudson. But right now, the best defenseman on the Canadians, for example, you're talking Noah Dobson and Lane Hudson. We don't know how they're going to play together in the same lineup, and they're on opposite sides. Are they going to be a top pair? Are they going to be separated? How is that going to change the chemistry entirely for Montreal? It might not work. We don't know. And if it doesn't, well, now Montreal's going to have to pivot because there's still only one puck. At least with the Bruins, with the lineup that we're looking at, there's balance for players to play to their strengths as well as let other players play to their strengths. The question is can some of these other teams say the same thing? We'd like to think, if you're fans of that team, yes. But so many of them have to actually prove it. Like,
we lost Kenny again, huh?
Yeah, I'm waiting for him to pop back up on the thing here, and we'll bring him right back in. But, I mean, I think, as weird as it is, there's a way. I don't think it's realistic, but there is a path where the Bruins could win the division. The path is there for Montreal to win the division. It's there for Tampa to win the division. Like, this division is more wide open than I think people are giving it credit for, but all the teams are good. So it's going to be a good battle between the teams.
It's one of the toughest divisions in the whole entire league.
Yeah. And
just
and
like
that's
the American League, just like the American League East in baseball is always like one of the toughest divisions. You know what I mean? It's just when you have like 3 original 6 franchises, and especially with Montreal being in the conversation again, it just makes it that much more better.
Oh yeah, and
Kenny's
there we
back.
go. We've got Kenny back.
Brutal What's Bruin debut here as the power keeps going in and out, but
yeah, we'll let it slide.
I was gonna say it's raining here, so if it's anything like what's going on here, it's weather related.
Listen, I put the doors back on my Jeep. I'm not happy.
Well, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
So, anyway, Kenny, I don't know how much of that you were able to catch while rebooting there, but I mean, the East itself, the Atlantic itself, as a division, I mean, there's a path. I think for almost, I think Buffalo's probably the one team where I sit there and go, no, too much has to go right. But there's a path for pretty much any team.
The other thing is, too, is you got to look at the schedule. It's no more, you have to play out of your division in the playoffs, but not in the regular season.
Yeah.
Like, how many, they faced Florida, what, 3 times? That's it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you're not even facing the top teams game after game like you used to with the old way. So they have that luxury of playing teams that are below them. They just have to capitalize on those and not play down to that level. That's the problem.
Which is something we saw them do last year.
Yeah, against Buffalo. My gosh, those were brutal games to watch.
Well, there were so many, even during, like, the only season that it didn't happen was the historic season, right? Because they had the 65 wins. But for the most part, anytime the Bruins, they would play teams that they had no business beating, and they would beat them. And then they would play a team that's like down in the standings, like 32 out of all the teams, and they would lose to them like 8-0. It's like, where's your head? It's because they played down to their opponents. They do it all the time.
Yeah. I would say I think you have a better shot at seeing Boston do what Washington has done to get back in the mix. where you have that one down year, you make a couple really good draft selections, and you fix kind of where your prospect pool went wrong, and then you're able to have a few more really good years on the back end of that.
So,
And go ahead.
well, because you say that, but I'm gonna say something that drives people nuts. Don Sweeney is a better GM when it comes to trades and signing free agents than he is drafting. He's not like in drafting, he relies on his scouts and everything else. But next year, with the cap going up again and only in signing a lot of these players to only 1-year deals, they're going to have tons of cap space. And the free agent market is a lot better next year than it is. And if they can make the playoffs, then it gives another reason for players to want to come to Boston.
Oh, yeah. And I'm not saying every prospect is going to be the future of the franchise. Like, yeah, James Higgins is someone that you're looking at if you're the Bruins going, we want you in our lineup.
Oh,
We
absolutely.
want you here.
Yep,
However,
absolutely.
even someone like William Moore, who looked great at camp, is going to go to BC. They'll have close eyes on him. He is someone that, because of what he could become, you can now use him to bring in someone who can help you now. You and I have had that conversation where it's that 3-wave set. You have the current team, you have the future team, but it's that middle tier. And that middle tier is where you're sitting there going, are they part of our future or are they not part of our future?
Right.
And that middle wave is where the Bruins fell extremely weak because of players that they traded away. And that's the part that has been replenished because the immediate, we want them here, guys, you now have. You have James Higgins, you have, Matthew Poitras, you have Fraser Minton, you have Will Zellers. These are the guys that are fighting for those spots.
Right.
But you also have your veteran young guys in McAvoy and Pastrnak. I'm not saying Lindholm is old, but at 30 years old, he's one of your most veteran players.
Right.
Like, you have gone from having Patrice Bergeron at 36, 37, 38 years of age, David Krejci, 36, 37 years old. Brad Marchand is 36 right now? You have just gutted the age of your roster from 37 to 27.
Right. Well, and I'd like to point out too is that a lot of people are still talking about the fact that they couldn't get the deal done with Brad Marchand and this, that, and the other thing. Keep in mind, Brad Marchand played on the third line in Florida. In Boston, he would not have been on the third line.
And also, if Boston signed Brad Marchand to a 6-year contract for any dollar amount, they'd have been crucified for it. 6 years is way too long. That's what we would be hearing left and right. How do you give him a 6-year deal? How do you give him a 6-year deal?
I think it goes both ways. I think you have some people that'll say that you give Marchand whatever he wants, and then you have other people that would say it's way too long. I think that I think Bruins fans were torn on that because there was a lot of noise about you just give Marchand whatever he wanted after what he did. But I disagree with that. Like, I think at his age, giving him a 6-year deal would have been asinine.
Didn't both sides win? That's what I'm saying. Like, Bruins fans are like, for all he did, this, that, and the other thing. But in looking at it now, didn't both sides win? Now he's in Florida.
Think they did.
He gets another cup. Boston gets to move on, right? People were upset. They're like, oh no, the last part of that 2011 team. And I'm just like, but isn't that a good thing? This is not 2011. This is 2025. Like, we need to move on from that.
Right.
I just think it worked out for everybody. So people still upset about it. It sucks. Yeah, you lost Brad Marchand. I feel like, I grew up watching him. Like, yeah, he's a staple in Boston, but it had to happen at some point. And I think carrying that 6-year contract at this point where the Bruins are right now would have been a major mistake.
Can I also point out, do you know who the oldest, it's background noise, sorry. Do you know who the oldest player on this roster is? Either one of you, off the top of your head.
Um,
Or if you had to guess who it would be.
Zaka.
Zadorov.
It's Sean Corrali.
Oh.
And he's only 33. So behind him, you have Arvidsson and Hampus Lindholm at 32, Jonas Korpisalo and Elias Lindholm at 31, and then Nikita Zadorov at 30. Everyone else is under the age of 30.
Wow, wasn't even close.
Yeah. I thought for some reason, I thought Zadorov was older.
I think he's almost 31, but it also feels like he's older because he's bounced around to so many different teams. But the point is you have an extremely young team overall. And when you compare that to where you've been, when you've had Bergeron, Marchand, Krejci, even Chara in the final years, like you're talking about having 36, 35-year-olds. Last year, Tyler Johnson at 34.
Let's be honest. Patrice Bergeron, the way he played, what's the word I'm looking for?
He has the body of a 90-year-old.
He cheated Father Time, though. He cheated Father Time. Him and David Krejci both cheated Father Time because even at their higher age, what they needed to do, they were still doing. You know what I mean? Like Bergeron was still winning faceoffs. He was still dishing the puck. You know what I mean? David Krejci was still dishing the puck and being the matrix on the ice. They were still doing what. So I think that everyone was just expecting Brad Marchand to do the same exact thing. But Brad Marchand had a lot more surgeries than.
Oh, yeah. And both Krejci and Bergeron have serious body issues right now from what I understand, David Krejci can barely grip a stick these days. Bergeron is, limping around like an old man at this point. Like they're not.
He still I'm not saying he's every Friday.
Compared to where they were.
No, not Bergeron.
Their bodies are breaking down.
Yeah, not Chara either. I just saw him running marathon. Holy.
Yeah, Chara just did another Ironman. I think it's exaggerated.
Probably a little bit.
I think it's especially on Bergeron's case because he literally skates every Friday. He skates with Adam McQuaid and a few other players and he's on the ice more often than not. You know what I mean? I think that it's being exaggerated because people want to believe that because he retired when he still had game left in the tank.
I think there's a lot of pain there for both of them in terms of compared to what you or I go through on a daily basis, they're beat up. But that being said, they both have had a lot of major surgeries compared to what you and I have been through, or Kenny, or whatever. It's beat up for being a hockey player, and they're not able to maintain a certain level. Yeah, you can go throw skates on, and they'll still have more skill than anybody down at the rink that Kenny and I would go skate on, but that doesn't mean they're going to have the right amount of speed to do the things they need to do or anything like that. They're still beat up.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, Krejci, if he could barely hold a stick, would still probably put up 10 goals a game in my beer league. So
10 a game, maybe 20.
Yeah, hey, listen, if Krejci's out there listening, you're always invited on the Connecticut Vipers. Always, we will get a jersey for you and everything. You'll come out and help us win.
You're like, I'll even buy it myself for you.
Oh yeah, I'll buy it myself. I'll buy the jersey. Absolutely.
Real quick, just a couple last comments from Head 11 here. Long term, would the Bruins be better off having a season like Utah, taking their chance with the lottery, or being one round and out in the playoffs?
The Bruins, as much as everyone believes that sports teams will tank, it's not happening. Players are playing for pride. They're playing for contracts. They're playing for, you know, their own, what's the word? Their own marketability, ability, everything. They are not going, oh, we're going to lose tonight so that we can tank, so that we can get the number 1 draft pick. They're not doing that because it hurts them in the long run.
The closest thing that you will ever see, in my opinion, come to a team purposefully tanking, especially when it comes to the Bruins, is what you saw at the end of last year after the trade deadline, when it was clear, yes, they were still trying to win games, but you're not putting, you know, Vinny Lettieri on your second or third line because he's better for Poitras, or he's better than Matthew Poitras. You're leaving Poitras in Providence because that's better for him long term. A benefit of that mutual beneficial decision is you have lesser talent at the NHL level. You're going to lose more games while still seeing who is fighting for wins. And if you do lose, you have a better shot at that higher pick. But again, because it's a lottery system, there's a reason why the Islanders ended up with the first pick, because it's a lottery system. You're not guaranteed that first pick, even if you do tank.
And one and done gives the younger players more experience anyways. Think about it. Go back to 2008. The Bruins make the playoffs, lose in the first round. 2009 is the Montreal series where they go 7 games. They force the game 7, they lose. 2010, they, you know,
that was the year that they lost.
They marched through the playoffs till the Eastern Conference Finals. Then Tuukka Rask and David Krejci both get injured, and they end up blowing the 3-0 lead to the Flyers and lose 4-3 in that series. Then the next year, they win the Stanley Cup, right? That is all experience. So even though, I mean, think of how many years the Bruins, with the exception of 2015 and 2016, think of how many years the Bruins have made the playoffs. Would you rather see your team in the playoffs when you can get a hot goaltender or anything? Because in 2011, the Bruins were not the dominant team. They were not the best team. They got a hot goaltender. They got scoring when they needed it. They got all different. Everything fell into place for the Bruins. They were not supposed to win the Stanley Cup in 2011.
Well, that brings up another thing that Chris left out. Why does Poitras get sent down? Well, he's also getting professional playoff experience. That's why a lot of those players were down there. They're all just prepping for the playoffs and getting ready, and and I think Poitras played a pretty good playoff. This really wasn't a part of it, but somebody who did not have a good playoff was Lysell, who was scratched game 4 of the series. So not a great look there, but there is definitely, there's definitely stock in having players play in the playoffs. Obviously, getting playoff experience is important.
And real quick,
why do you think teams trade for players? Like, why do you think the Bruins traded for Pat Maroon? Not because he was going to put them over the top, but he had that playoff experience. Why did you know what I mean? Like, how many Stanley Cups had Pat Maroon won? That's why teams look for those players. Why do you think Florida wanted Brad Marchand?
Yep.
Because of the veteran leadership experience. And it's not like Florida needed it because they already had it, because they had already won a cup. But still, you get that veteran leadership that knows what it takes to win a Stanley Cup. Those are the players that experience is invaluable to young players.
Yeah, I think
100%.
Marchand's a really good example because it kind of goes both ways. He was there when they won the cup, and he was there all the times that they didn't. So he recognizes how it's done and where stuff can start to fall apart.
Right.
Yeah, and that 2011 team, we talk about how they're building from the net out. That 2011 team was second in the league in goals against.
Mhm.
I think people forget that. And this team that we have right now, based on their being built from the net out in a similar fashion, not exactly the same way, but a similar fashion, I don't know if they'd be second in the league in terms of goals against, but they're certainly going to be or should be a hell of a lot better than they were last year.
Right.
And yes, that team was top 5 in scoring. I want to say they were 5th or 6th in scoring that year, but you have offense. You only need to win by 1. I think people forget that. People want to have all the flash of an 8-1 victory. You only need to win by 1.
Right.
Well, I mean,
So as
yeah,
long
if you're
as-
top 5 in both of those categories, I would expect you to be a cup contender. No, if you're top 5 in offense and top 5 in defense,
Right.
You should be, yeah.
yeah.
But you want to be higher, and I think that the Bruins' goal is to be higher in goals against than in goals for, just because what do we always hear in so many different sports? Offense wins games, defense wins championships. And so when you build from the defense and the net out, that's how you're building it. So, and real quick, I will add that Head 11 says that he wasn't implying that they tank, just talking about max potential, weighing playoff experience versus potentially a better pick in a deeper class, to which I think we're all in agreement that, you play to win, as they say, you play to win the game. And, if you can get that first round, that's the beauty of it, though, is you play. If you make the playoffs, then you get some experience. If you don't, as long as you're in that top 10, you have a shot at the number 1 pick. If you're in that top 11 to 15, 16, you're still going to get a top 10 pick, or you still can get a top 10 pick. So if it's a deeper draft, at this point, roll the dice, try to get into the playoffs, and if you miss, there's still a chance that you can get a top 10 pick.
Right.
And technically, you have 2 chances to win that top 10 pick, because if the Bruins can miss the playoffs, Toronto might be able to miss the playoffs too. You have 2 shots at a potential top 10 pick. If you're able to make the playoffs, maybe Toronto's the team that you're knocking out, and you still have a roll of the dice for their pick. So, with that, though, I want to remind folks, Kenny, you and I will be live tomorrow at 6:30 for kicking off the Next Shift podcast. I'm looking forward to it. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Thank you for joining us tonight. Do you have any other thoughts here as we wind down? I want to thank everyone for watching, just because we are the dog days of summer. But any final thoughts to share before we sign off for the week?
No, I just thank you both for having me on. It was a great time. I mean, 2 hours just flew by. So yeah,
You were in and out.
That's probably why I was out for a half hour, and then but yeah, no, thank you for having me on, and I'm excited to see where you guys go this season. I'll be watching.
I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys accomplish on the Next Shift. It was awesome having you on tonight. I look forward to, once the season gets going, to you joining us again, seeing how much crow we have to eat, you and I, about our rosters and what we're looking at. And I just, talking puck is always fun with knowledgeable people. I'm not saying that people aren't, but there are some people that want what they want when they want it, but they're not understanding the business aspect and the whole other aspect. So it's always fun talking puck. And sorry, who's more? I just want to answer Bob's question first.
I was going to pull it up before we signed off. Just a quick little, who's more likely to be a Bruin in 2 years, Beecher, Lysell, or neither?
Beecher.
Kenny?
I'm going to go neither.
I'd be surprised if Lysell is on this team come the trade deadline.
Yeah, I I lean towards neither. I don't see either one long term, and at that point, you're why are you letting him walk for free? Beecher's the one that if you let him walk for free, it's not really going to bite you in the ass, and Liesel you can still get something for because someone's going to look at him and say we can revive his career overall, and package him with someone, and you can really bolster a trade package value too. So absolutely. We always want to take the questions, and we love the comments. So that's why we're on here.
And if you want to give us a hint, otherwise we're calling you Head 11.
Yeah. We'll call you whatever you want, but I mean, we try to keep it family friendly. So that's. But yeah, I want to thank everyone for tuning in. I can't wait till we do this again every week, just because that means hockey's back. But
Yep.
I know I'm looking forward to tomorrow's show with Kenny. And with that, my last thought.